folks, let me show you from the United Kingdom where local politics, and local politics, the smaller the stakes, the hotter the squabbles. When I was a kid, I was on the students' union of my university for a year or so. And the viciousness of the politics in students' unions, there's a saying, it's inverse to the stakes. And students' union politics, it's nothing, really. I mean, there is some budget, but it's just really virtue signaling and gossipy power plays. So local councils in the UK, which is pretty small potatoes politics, they're hiring spies to spy on people. Take a look at this image here. This is from Metro, which is a newspaper over there. Let me just read that headline before you scroll up. Councils hire COVID enforcement officers with the power to snoop on lawbreakers. So these are not real police. Scroll down just a little bit, please. COVID enforcement officers are being hired by councils, which are granting spy powers to allow them to catch suspected rule breakers in the act. The officers can conduct operations covertly or overtly to ensure people are abiding by government restrictions, such as the 10 p.m. curfew and rule of 6. That means you can't gather with more than 6 people, aimed at preventing the spread of coronavirus. They can take part in plainclothes operations and use body-worn cameras and other kit to gather evidence against suspected rule flouters. Unlike COVID marshals who use a lighter touch, they have the power to investigate alleged breaches. Maybe they are real cops. That's not clear yet. Details of the new roles emerged as West Midlands Police and Crime Commissioner David Jameson said police could break up rule breakers' Christmas dinners. However, human rights lawyer Adam Wagner, I know Adam, I've had a good chat with him before, responded by saying police have no power of entry under the coronavirus legislation. I'm glad that Adam's coming around. He's very slow to criticize the government, but when he comes around well. He's a smart dude. Privacy campaign group Big Brother Watch, that's a cool name, has said the enhanced roles amount to undercover officers who would be spying on residents and only undermining public trust in efforts to enforce restrictions. I think that's true. Madeline Stone, legal and policy officer, said hiring undercover officers to enforce guidance that has no legal basis is heavy-handed. Hey, Justin, let's see if we can get Madeline Stone on the show one day. Councils should focus their resources on supporting people affected by the cases, not treating them like potential criminals. You're so right. Spying on the residents is the worst possible approach local authorities could take and will only erode the public's trust in them. 5 roles are being advertised by Brent Council for its regulatory services department. So it's not real police. You know what? When we're done this, let's Google Brent Council regulatory services. I would be very curious to look at that ad. They say that there's ads. The advert, that's what they call ads in the UK, reads, the role will offer advice and support to the public and business owners, respond to and investigate complaints regarding compliance with guidelines and regulations, carry out spot checks, and where necessary, take appropriate enforcement action to ensure adherence with COVID-19 controls. So if these aren't cops, how do they take enforcement action? The advertised pay is £34,000 per year. My quick math in my head tells me that's just around 55 Canadian. I don't know the exchange rate. Last I checked it was 1.7 or something. Do you want to slap that in the Google machine? 34,418 pounds. Let's call it 55 grand Canadian. And the post is described as suitable for someone who has knowledge of law enforcement and investigative ability. So you have knowledge of law enforcement. You're not a cop. You don't have, let's say, a law degree, or you haven't passed the, just under 60 grand, Justin tells me. So you have to, what is knowledge of law? So a criminal has knowledge of law enforcement. Is that what you mean? Scroll down a little bit. Undercovering possible breaches, including carrying out routine or unplanned visits and inspections covertly or overtly as required. Could you imagine that? You're hiring strangers who are not cops, are not lawyers, but they have, quote, knowledge of law enforcement, as in they've watched some TV shows. You know in your bones that 90% of the people applying have just watched some detective shows and think that they're all that. And then paying them almost 60 grand Canadian to conduct undercover operations. Can I say it? I was going to say someone's going to get killed here, but I take that back. The Brits are too meek. There's no Winston Churchills left. There's Nigel Farage is the closest thing you got to a Churchill in that country. I think most will say, oh, stiff upper lip, old chap, keep calm and carry on. I think, I can't believe this is happening in the UK. That's what happens when you disarm a country. And I love the UK, by the way. If you think I don't love it, you're wrong. I love it, but it pains me to read this. The introduction reads, the threats posed by COVID-19 are rapidly changing. So, that's not true. So the ability to learn new regulations, interpret guidance, and provide an immediate public response is essential to this role. I'm a former lawyer. I read this legislation being excreted by the Parliament of the UK, usually at 12:01, just after midnight. The most dense legalese I have ever encountered. I read it so slowly and carefully, like I say, former lawyer, law school degree, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I can barely understand it. I'm no dummy. You're telling me you're just hiring people off of Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever, paying them 60 grand a year, and they're going to be experts in these COVID laws, plus experts in undercover policing. Oh my God. You know what? If the Brits had more Tabasco in them, I'd say this is going to lead to someone getting punched in the nose, but I don't even know about that. The council is also recruiting COVID regulatory support officers who are essentially marshals, offering guidance and advice to ensure people follow the rules. So that's probably 65 grand. Advertised at £30,000 per annum, the role is described as suiting a friendly, personable, and helpful individual. Mate, you're not going to get friendly and helpful individuals applying to be snitches. You're hiring snitches, rats, and informants. And there's this wonderful word I've learned, grass. Can you throw up on the screen the Urban Dictionary, grass? And I'm not talking about marijuana. If you're grassing, type grassing, because grass will probably come up marijuana. I'm talking the verb to grass, grassing. I don't think we say that on this side of the pond. That's a snitch. That's an informant. That's someone who looks through their blinds at you and whispers and then calls the police. Can you find a definition of to grass, grassing, grasser? Maybe I got it wrong. Grasser. Just a Wiktionary. Slang, a grass, an informer. This is the first thing I got when I Googled it. An informer. You're a grass. I thought it was a verb. It's a noun. My mistake. You're a grasser. Google grasser. They're hiring grassers. You have to be a helpful and friendly grasser. That's a contradiction in terms, mate. I think you're going to hire the world's sociopaths, the world's misanthropists, the world's pervs, peeping toms, creeps, a grasser, an informer, person who informs against someone, person who provides. He was the president's financial informer. No. That's the second meaning. The first meaning is the one we mean. Person who informs against someone. Yeah. Thanks. All right. A grasser. I'm a grasser. Can you imagine hiring grassers? You have to be a helpful and friendly grasser. We're hiring grassers. That word doesn't sound strong enough. Maybe it's someone who hides in the grass to snitch on you. I like snitch. What are some of the phrases? Is a stool pigeon, is that the same thing? I haven't heard that word in such a long time. A stoolie. A stool. In America, that's very American. Yeah, can you throw stool pigeon on there? I know these are weird words. Stool pigeon. a stoolie, a person employed or acting as a decoy or informer, especially for the police. I think stoolie, stool pigeon, snitch, snitches get stitches. Grasser's too friendly. All right, go back. All right, I went down a rabbit hole there. I love the UK banter. I love the lingo. They're hiring grassers. Can we find that advert, as they call it? So they're just out in the open saying, we're hiring people to spy on our voters, on our taxpayers, on our citizens. We politicians and bureaucrats are hiring snitches, stool pigeons, grassers, informants, underminers, peeping toms, and voyeurs. Calling all peeping toms and voyeurs. Oh, you have to be helpful, though, and friendly, and you have to understand these. You know, I mentioned Adam Wagner there. He's one of the more prominent, or at least well-known, civil liberties and human rights lawyers in the UK. He tilts to the left, but that's fine. I wish there were more civil libertarians on the left. They've largely gone silent. I follow Adam Wagner on Twitter because he really looks at the regs closely. Like I say, they're often published at 12:01 a.m. by the British Parliament. And when I say published by the Parliament, they're not reviewed by MPs. They're not voted on. They're just published. Like I say, it's as if it's a wartime. They just publish the regs. And Adam Wagner, who's no dummy, he goes through them meticulously, and he says they're baffling. And what do words like mingling? What does mingling mean? Or even singing? Because singing, you know that singing is banned in the UK, at least in parts. You know that, right? Okay. Well, if I talk in a melody, is that singing what I just did there? Or does that have to, is singing a certain volume? If you rap without a melody, is that singing? Like these, you have to understand these regulations. No one understands these regulations. Sounds like Justin's found the advert, Brent. Covert regulatory, COVID and covert. Yeah, there's a pun there somewhere. COVID regulatory support officer. Salary range, 30,000 quid. Fixed term until March 31st. Hours of work, 36 hours a week. You don't want to work too hard. Civic center and other areas from time to time. Ensuring that our residence is safe and protected. You're a snitch, mate. You're a snitch. This is the lesser one, Justin says in my ear. Okay, so let's find the other one. COVID enforcement officer. Yeah, that's probably the one. Yeah, we can see what's that, 32,000 quid. Can you pump up the size just one notch there? Yeah, perfect. We are looking to recruit 5 COVID enforcement officers, 5 of them. So it's a gang, really, to assist providing the council's COVID-19 regulatory response. Advice and support to the public. Hey, can you send the snitches over? I want their advice and support. Respond to and investigate complaints. You know, it would be a shame if the good people in Brent flooded the snitch line with BS complaints. And certainly don't send in dick pics or anything like that. I want to tell you, do not send dick pics to these 5 COVID enforcement officers. That would be outrageous, and that might even violate pornography or obscenity laws. So do not do that. If we receive a high volume of applications, we may close the roll early. Blah, blah, blah. Date as soon as possible. Additional information. We value the diversity of the community. We aim to have a workforce, so minority snitches are preferred. As a disability confident employer, I haven't heard that phrasing. As a disability confident employer, Brent welcomes applications from people with disabilities. Well, what if their disability means they can't have a mask? Please note CVs will not be considered as part of your, there's more info. Click on that more info. What do you get there? It's not clickable. Job description. I think we pretty much read through that, right? Or it's more details. deliver a high-quality frontline service, liaising with complainants, business owners, investigate complaints, carry out routine or unplanned visits, covertly or overtly, to ensure compliance with current. Can you flip me this by email? I'm going to go deeper on this another day. But thanks for walking me through it, Justin. Thanks for finding it. Hey, I got a question for you. And this is for my friends in Brent, UK. What part of the UK is that? The London borough of Brent. So it looks like it's pretty much part of Greater London, right? In fact, if you look on the map, if you zoom out, you may as well just say London. If I've got that right. Do you want to throw that on the map to show people where Brent is? I think it's just London. So you got this local council in London, so these are low-level politicians. And they're hiring 5 snitches, 5 grassers. Yeah, and zoom out just a bit. Looks very nice. For all I know, I've been to Brent and didn't know I was there. Just zoom out just a tiny bit more, just to put it in context, even a little more. Even more, even more, even more. So you see where that red dot is? If you said, where's that red dot? I'd say London. But you'd say, well, yeah, it's the borough of Brent. They say borough, they don't say borough. I went to Peterborough, and they laughed at me. They said, it's Peterborough. Peterborough. I said Peterborough. That's what we call the city in Canada. Can you imagine that? Hiring 5 people to snitch on your own citizens. And my question is, does that have anything to do with a medical or public health issue? Does that have anything to do with the virus that peaked in April? Does that have anything to do with health? Or does that have everything to do with political power and control and abuse? That's an excerpt from my daily TV show that I do live at 12 noon Eastern Time. We talk about the news of the day, we play interesting viral videos, and most importantly, I take your questions that you chat to me through YouTube Super Chat. I think that's the funnest part of it. So tune in every weekday at 12 noon Eastern Time, only here at rebelnews.com.